Being a car inventor in Africa isn't for the faint-hearted. In fact, it's more like an extreme endurance sport where the rules of physics are tested, not in multi-million-dollar labs, but in backyards and scrapyards. Forget the smooth roads and sleek headquarters you see in commercials from Germany or Japan. In Africa, the assembly line is often just one person, a welding machine that probably needs a prayer before it starts, and a hammer that doubles down as both design tool and quality assurance. So, you want to be the next Elon Musk in Africa? Good luck, buddy. Because the first step isn't finding investors, it's finding scrap. And what I mean by scrap is whatever kind of scrap, be it wood, plastics, metals, any sort of scrap. African inventors start with metals so old, it probably saw colonialism firsthand. Bicycle wheels, plywood bodies, engines that once powered motorcycles and old cars. Listen, this isn't Detroit. This is DIY at its rawest and its finest. Because it's more than just scrap metals. It's about wit and whatever genius that God handed to you. Because I'm telling you, these DIY vehicles that you see from Africa, they take more than just talent. They require every sort of investment, be it your brains or whatever you learned in school. Like, take for example, Uganda's plywood convertibles, for example. These wooden body bicycle tired marvel are redefining the phrase safety standards to mean as long as it doesn't catch fire, you are good. Because imagine a car that's made of wood when it catches fire. I wouldn't even want to imagine it. The seatbelts are optional, even sometimes non-existent. The dashboards are often hand-painted, and the engines hum so meekly, they sound like they are whispering their last words. Because in most cases when it comes to engines, it's mostly motorcycle engines. And mind you, motorcycle engines are air-cooled engines. So don't be surprised to find air-cooled engines being locked inside a handmade bonnet.
Engine, my friend. Engineer boda.
Like, how is that supposed to work? The engine is supposed to be air-cooled, meaning it's supposed to be, exposed to the air. But in most cases, it's inside a body. Tell me how that works. Or witness Kenya's backyard car projects, where old fuel tanks, rusty bolts, and unmatched tires come together to birth a machine that defies both logic, design, and common sense. Sometimes the only thing holding the parts is sheer willpower and a cousin named Kevin, who knows a guy that knows a guy. Because without a person like Kevin who knows a guy that knows a guy, where will you get your scraps from? Even if your vehicle miraculously moves, brace yourself for the next challenge, the community. You see, the community will either crown you as a genius or run for cover. One look at your creation and you'll hear the question, is it road legal? More times than you'll hear your own name. Because look at this car. Do you think this car will ever be road legal? Leave alone the credit, because I know he deserves credit. But when he was building it, was he considering it to be road legal maybe one day? What do you think about that? Leave a comment. The real hill to climb is funding. Investors in Africa aren't standing in line. If you're lucky, you might catch the attention of your local chief or a distant uncle with a savings account. If not, your prototype will remain in the neighborhood's permanent lawn decoration. Because look at this car. Obviously, this car isn't going anywhere. In terms of, the hitting the roads. So where is it going if it's not going on the road? Doesn't it belong like somewhere in a museum? Yeah. And let's not even talk about the spare parts. If your creation breaks down, you don't order new parts. Because remember, everything here is about improvisation. You search for whatever looks remotely similar and you pray it fits.
Quand Mohamed Lamine parlait de son intention de fabriquer une voiture, ils étaient peu à le croire.
It's obviously a form of mechanical improvisation that will even make MacGyver raise an eyebrow. If your creation breaks down, you don't order new parts. Because remember, these cars are all about improvisation. And when I say improvisation, since these cars are basically made out of motorcycle spare parts, right? So it's basically like a motorcycle that's basically being reinvented to be a car. So when it comes to spare parts, you search for whatever remotely looks similar and pray it fits. You know, it's a form of improvisation that will even make MacGyver raise an eyebrow. Let's say if a certain part, gets ruined, and let's say it's not available in your local scrapyard, what you'll do is you just use whatever is available. And sometimes that means using things that don't fit. So you have to, again, improvise your car over and over again. And that's why we end up with cars looking like this. So really, it's not the inventor's fault. It's just using whatever you have. Yeah. Meanwhile, in the land of BMWs and Teslas, cars are tested in wind tunnels and crash test dummies are worth more than your entire workshop. Safety basically doesn't exist because there's nothing to test safety with. And when it comes to safety features like OBS, track control, and AI-powered autopilot that come as standard, in cars from the West. In Africa, the only AI is your instinct telling you, brace for impact, buddy. Because at the end of the day, you are the dummy. You are the test dummy. So whatever happens to your car, it's going to happen to you. European inventors obsessed with aerodynamics. African inventors are just happy if the wheels rotate in the same direction, right? Because it's not as easy as it sounds. While Western companies test in labs, African cars are tested in pothole-laden villages roads, and if the suspension survives, then your car is roadworthy. It basically passes all the tests because, when it comes to bad roads, I don't think there are any that beat African roads. But make no mistake, African inventors are masters of innovation. They may not have shiny showrooms, but sure, they are street smart. Because who needs fancy patience when you have neighborhoods cheering on you as you roll down the dirty roads, dodging goats, cows, speed bumps, all in equal measure. That takes some kind of smart. Dodging speed bumps and potholes in a DIY car that basically doesn't have any suspension. I mean, that driver belongs, in an F1 race. Despite the struggles, there's an undeniable charm of being a car inventor in Africa. When finally you get that pile of scrap to start, even if it coughs and squeezes like an old man climbing stairs, the victory is sweeter than a new car's smell. Take for example ACC Wheezy, who made a three-wheeled car. His car is one of a kind, and ACC Wheezy took more than 3 years to build this beauty. And when he first started, people doubted him. They talked about him being crazy, him making things out of nothing. Hell, I was even one of the first people to criticize him. But when his car finally came out, it was a marvel. The gravity blackbird was something quite unique. It wasn't something that we had quite pictured when he started, but I guess in his own eyes, he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was creating. It's a pity that it took him 3 years just to make this. I know something like this in the Western world, it will take a few days. But it took A.C.C. Wheezy 3 years to create this. And he didn't just start with this car. You see, a person like A.C.C. Wheezy and other African inventors, they try to be unique, but most of them fail the tests. But for A.C.C. Wheezy, or even when I first knew him, he was building a car called, I guess it was a Batman mobile. It was a car that was meant to be like, you know, the Batman's car. It was quite unique. So he's always tried to strive to build something unique, you know. Because again, A.C.C. Wheezy right now is on the verge of landing a deal with Red Bull. I mean, if he wasn't consistent and didn't start, he wouldn't be here, right? So why does it suck to be a car inventor in Africa? Because the road is bumpy, the resources are scarce, and the world isn't exactly lining up to buy your plywood sports car. You work twice as hard for half the recognition, and your garage is more a scrapyard than a showroom. But it also doesn't entirely suck, because while the world builds cars with billion-dollar machines, Africa builds inventors who can turn junk into joyrides. The journey from scrap to street might be rough, but it's paved with creativity, determination, and a sense of humor strong enough to survive even the worst test drive. You know? Welcome to Africa. Anyway, what do you think about car inventors in Africa? You know, what will you do if you ever found yourself in a situation where you wanted to make a car, but all you had was scraps and your wits? What should you do? Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you on the next one.